Dozens of people had gone through this before her just today. Thousands had gone through testing in the last 10 years since Visage had unveiled its plan to employ humans as blood donors for vampires. It had been a most fortuitous circumstance for them, at least. Millions of people out of jobs in one fell swoop. And then out of the gloom and doom came a knight on a white horse to save them all. An end to the fear of what lurked in the darkness. An end to being hunted for their blood. An end to the economic struggles entirely. So long as you gave up the very thing they had hunted humans for. 10 years later, and not much had really changed. The majority of people still lived below the poverty line, and now the populace was more tied to Visage than ever. But Reyna couldn't change that any more than she could quell the fear building in her stomach at the thought of becoming another mindless drone for the conglomerate. Reyna wondered if any of the people who had come before her had been nervous about their decision. At this point, the only choice was between Visage and dying of starvation. She didn't exactly prefer the latter option when she could do something to put food on the table for her brothers. That was all this was about anyway. She couldn't stand the sight of them wasting their lives away, toiling in the factories, when she could be doing something, anything, to help their situation. Reyna fidgeted at the sight of the big white door looming ahead. The door that sealed her fate to Visage. Can I really do this? Do I even have a choice? Unaware of, or at least unconcerned with Reyna's fear, the administrator turned the doorknob. It didn't make a sound as it slid open before her. Reyna swallowed hard. "Right this way," the administrator instructed. Reyna could just make out the long, stark white corridor beyond the door. She started to sweat. Once she was through that door, there was no turning back. The testing would commence. Reyna's arm itched at the very thought. When she had been approved to complete her application earlier that week, Visage had given her a packet explaining what was to come. The gist of it was needles. Lots and lots of needles. Reyna gagged. She hated needles. Always had. She didn't even know where the fear stemmed from. If she'd had a traumatic experience as a child, no one who was still in her life knew about it. Considering what she was about to do, it was ridiculous to fear needles. They were going to be the least of her worries, where vampires were concerned. But if there were another choice, then she would have already found it. Visage was the only option. The absolute last option. Just the way they liked it. Still, seeing the white door gaping wide in front of her made her reconsider. It was the first time all day she'd had that reaction. She was set in her decision to work for Visage. She had come to terms with the decision over the course of the last couple weeks, when she had snuck away to apply to become a blood escort. No one else would hire a warehouse rat. She had finished out secondary school only to be faced with a direr situation than she could have dreamed. Without a college degree, she was useless. But to afford a college degree, she needed money. Yet no one would hire her without a degree so that she could afford to go get one. It was an endless, pathetic cycle that only infuriated her more. So, her brother started taking more shifts and working consistent doubles. The thought of her two brothers slaving away in the warehouses just to stay afloat through this depression made her sick. She wanted to do something. No, she needed to do something. She couldn't let them work day in and day out in such horrible conditions for pitiful wages. Visage didn't care that she was a 21-year-old girl without a degree. They cared that she had the one thing the vampires desperately needed: blood.